Hey guys, welcome back. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the scene and see kind of where we are, just as a kind of a reminder. Currently we're sitting at say roughly 30 frames per second. Somewhere, well, it's jumping around, but I'm going to say about 30. Looking right directly into the scene with everything on. If you look over the stats panel right over here, there's a lot of actually pretty good information over here. First of all, it's got our frame rate, right? Which on this one's looking right around 50 or so, plus or minus 30. But look at this. We've got a CPU main, which is running at about 15 milliseconds. And you've got a render thread which is running at about 10 milliseconds. What that tells us is that we're CPU locked here in this frame. The CPU is taking more time than the renderer. So the renderer, the video card itself, is waiting on the CPU to feed it data to show to the screen. So that's where this number is coming from. So right now we're being locked by our scripts rather than by what's drawing on the screen. We're running about 1,300 batches right now with a set pass calls, which used to be called draw calls, of about 1,200. I played around with this a bit, guys, with all the lights on. We were running about 3,000, about 3,100 draw calls or set pass calls, and about 3,100 batches as well. So we've saved, by this method that we're using, we've saved over half our batches and half of our set pass calls. So pretty good. Now if you turn off all the lights, if we go into, like, say, the torch, let me show you guys this because this is kind of interesting. Anyway, I turn off all the torches. Okay, and we run this. Look at what we got here. 107 batches, about 60 set pass calls. Okay, and we're still running about 5 milliseconds, which is, we're still CPU locked in this particular scene. So anyway, that's really kind of our goal, guys, is to hit 100 batches, about 60 set pass calls. That's the best we can do. Okay, now we are going to work on the torches in this episode, but there's one other thing. There's something I want to do. When we left last time, we had finished, well, not finished, but we had worked on the script for torch triggers, but it's kind of a mess. For one thing, look at all this. Look at all the stuff we've got in the debug section. If I run this and watch these variables over here, if I run this, come on, Unity, pay attention. Sorry, let's run this and select a torch first. Let's select, say, for instance, that one. And then let's make sure we're set. Okay, now we should be able to look at the variables. So look at what we're looking at here. The three at the bottom, for one thing, are constants. So, you know, they were useful to have there while debugging, but they're totally useless for, you know, general purposes. So, you know, it's really just a waste of space. Now the square distance is actually kind of a useful thing to know. I'm going to leave that one in because we're going to be using that quite a bit when we're doing we're setting up some of the stuff we're about to set up, just to see where we're at. The result is the intensity, or not the intensity, sorry, the range. I keep mixing those two up. I'm sorry about that, guys. You can see right now it's sitting at, okay, here's it sitting at 15. If you look at result over here on the right, as we back off right there, it starts to drop. Okay, so this is our max light intensity distance. Right there it starts to drop. It's useful, you know, to make sure everything was working. And okay, so right about here, what are we at? We're at 4 or 5. So you can see the light range is almost 0 now. If you look at that torch that we've got selected, and right there it's 0. So that torch is off. The light is off anyway. Now again, that was useful when we were actually debugging the system. It's not particularly useful now. And then same for these light intensity these numbers actually we're going to keep because those are the ones we can change, right? Those are the fields that we want to have control over, basically, and also this max light intensity as well. So these 4 up top, or these 3 right here, we're going to keep. Result we're going to get rid of. We're going to keep square distance, and we're going to get rid of all these things because they're not really very useful. So let's go into the script. Okay, so first of all, result. We don't need result. In fact, we're not even using result for anything, really. It's really just there to for us to have that debugging stuff. I'm going to keep square distance. And in fact, square distance is such a useful thing. I'm actually going to stick him way up at the top. Now, these guys, for the moment, we still need them, but we don't need to have them public, right? So let's drop them into here, and we'll get rid of the public. Very nice. Okay, that should clean that up, right? I'm going to leave camera in there for right now. We actually technically don't need it, but I'm going to leave it for a moment for reasons which I'll show you in a minute. So let's take a look. So that's better, right? It's probably not going to affect our frame rate at all because that's too minor a thing, probably. But let's talk about that for a minute. Our frame rate. Number of distance checks per second, 220. Let's think about that number, 220. That number, 220 times per second, is the number of times, let's go back to our script, this function right here is getting called, right? This is the only place where we get this increment check. This function, this distance checks function, is running 220 times a second. So it's useful to make sure we optimize this function. This function really needs to be fast because it's running really faster than our frame rate. So yeah, let's see what we can do about maybe optimizing this a little bit. First off, let's look at these two things, max distance and min distance. What we're putting in, guys, if we look at Unity again, we're putting in numbers and then we're comparing that against the square distance. Well, do we really need to be doing that? We're doing this conversion between distance and square distance. What if we just directly use square distance instead of calculating square distance, right? Now you remember we want to use square distance here because we don't want to take a square root to get to the regular distance. There's no need. But if I specify these values in square distances, we can get rid of that equation altogether. Okay, and that's a couple of multiplications that we no longer have to be doing. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, I'm going to confuse myself here for a second. The min light distance is the bigger one, right? Yes, the minimum light distance is the distance at which the light is the minimum range. And we're going to change that name. So that's the bigger one. So our range is going to be min light intensity distance minus max light intensity distance. And instead of doing this, we're just going to take these variables out. We'll put this in here, max light intensity distance instead of distance. And now, instead of specifying just the distance, what we want to specify is the, let's see, let's make sure we're on the prefab here. What we want to specify is the square distance. So let me just calculate that. That's 2,500. And for the maximum light intensity distance is 625. Okay. So now those numbers correspond exactly and directly to the number that you see here, this square distance. Now if I have the, I always forget to select the torch. I have the torch selected. Now we run this. So there you go. So you'll see if I back off, when I hit 625 right there, we no longer have the result in there. Sorry, I was looking for the result, but we took it out. But right there at 625, it should start fading off, and it fades off until it hits 2500, at which point we're at 0, right about there somewhere, right? So those numbers now correspond directly to this number, so that's good. And let's see if we made any difference to our frame rate, actually, guys, as long as we're sitting right here. I'd say we're sitting right about 30. Well, yeah, it's bouncing around again. It's hard to say. It's like every time I run this, I get a different result. So, who knows? Our CPU main is sitting at about 20 milliseconds right now. 20 to 26, 27. Yeah, that's jumping around as well. There's a reason for that, guys, and that'll smooth out later on as we're working on a couple other things. All right, give me my script. Okay, so pretty good. We've managed to get rid of a couple of calculations in here, a couple of multiplications. The square distance varies, so we can't remove this, and the range, you know, we could try to optimize this. I don't know. I suspect there's an optimizer already in the compiler. You could take out the range variable, just to prevent, you know, just to keep it from doing that one thing. But it's probably already been doing that or automatically. Okay, guys. I've removed the start function because the only thing that was in there was the camera reference, and so I just dropped it directly into here rather than putting it in start. So I think we've about done everything we can here. The only other thing I want to do is I want to change this word intensity to range, because we're not changing the intensity, we're changing the range. That was from me being confused. So let's change these to make them less confusing. There we go. Min, light, range. Is there any way we can make that less confusing? At distance? Maybe at distance. Does that make more sense? Because we want this min to refer to the light range, not the distance. There's two different kind of things going on here, and it's confusing the way it is. So maybe that makes more sense. Max light range at distance. I hope so. Okay, guys. I think we've optimized that about as much as we can at this point. So let's head back to the game. Let's grab this torch right here. Grab. Why are we not grabbing? I don't want the box. I want the torch. Why are we grabbing? Stop it. Darn you. Okay, and let's see what we got here. Running at about 35 to 40 frames a second, looks like. So not bad. Not bad. Okay, let's move on. We've cleaned up that script a fair amount. What else is happening here? What's the difference between this scene and why is my light not on? Ah. Okay. I lost all my numbers. Oh gosh darn it. Why did it do that? Okay. What do we say here? 625 for this one. 2500 for this one. And the max light range was 15. There we go. Gosh, really got to keep an eye on that. Okay, so again, let's try that again. So what is the difference between this scene right here and the scene where I have no torches on? This one runs at 150 frames a second, something like that. Well, whereas, you know, this one runs significantly slower with the lights on. So what's going on there, guys? What's the difference? Well, we've got a bunch of distance checks going, which we're not going to be able to get rid of. That's just part of the thing that makes it work. But what else is going on there? Look how many particle systems we've got going. There are 5 particle systems per torch, right? So if you look at this, we got the glow. These are just the meshes, and this is just the light, so there's no particles here. But we got the glow, fire right, fire left, smoke, and sparks. Each one of these is producing particles. Okay. And now think about that. How many particles is that? Who even knows? It's a lot, right? Per torch, and we've got 300 torches we're looking at, and there's a huge chunk of your time, right? We're drawing a lot of particles. Another thing we're doing is we're jumping the shadows around, and we're varying the light intensity. Okay, not the light range. This time I really do mean intensity with that script. Yeah, Unity's complaining because I I messed with the controller. Hang on a second. Where's that sound? I'll put this back to 2. This is what it was. There we go. There. Now Unity's happier. Right. So let's think about how we can deal with the particles and maybe even that script. We got this light bounce, right? Now, here's my cursor. Let's grab that torch and check out this box. Now, obviously, the box is closer to us than the torch is. Now, right now, if we scroll down here, we're looking at a square distance of 45. Now, at what point from the box does the shadow flicker not really have any visible effect, right? You can see it here, maybe right about there, right? You can kind of see it, but you get back here, it's definitely not there. Now look at the square distance. We're sitting at about 275. So, give me my cursor again. We got to be a little bit careful about this, guys. Let me focus on this box and let me show you why. I'm going to take this box and I'm going to drop him out a little bit further, like way out here. And let's take a look and see what that does. So the shadow's a little less well defined, right? But you can see it's bouncing around. It's going to be bouncing around more because it's further away from the torch. So you can still see it bouncing way back up to probably about there. Now, the further away I get this object from the torch, the more that bounce is going to be obvious. but then the less the shadow is going to really be there, right? At this point, you can barely see the shadow from this. Hey, why are you doing that? Stop it. From this torch. In fact, it's a little bit off. That's a function of the shadow map, guys. So at what point do we say, well, it's good enough? Let's say that's probably about the max distance, and that's probably a pretty good approximation of what the max distance is that before we really can stop bouncing that shadow around. And let's take a look. Okay, give me my scene back. At where we can stop bouncing that shadow, which probably is roughly there. Our range right now is about 800. Let's say 800. That seems pretty good, right? So at 800, we really, at this point, can stop bouncing that shadow. Okay, there's no real need to bounce the shadow past about 800 square distance, 800 meters squared. So let's take a look and see how we can make that work for us. There's a couple different ways we can do this. I'm going to try to keep it simple and just use an if statement. If square distance is greater than 800.0f, what we want to do is turn off that torch fire random light position function. So we need an instance of, we need to grab this guy right here, right? So let's see. I don't need a distance check counter. We can get rid of that. The light dot get component. I'll change this in a minute, guys, but I want to at least get it working. The component we want is the torch. Sorry, no, it's not either. I take that back. It's the light source, the light. Fire random light pause. So fire random light position. Let's say bounce equals false. Okay. Else bounce equals true. Okay, it doesn't know what bounce is, and that's because I haven't set up bounce. So I'm gonna put in I'm gonna put in a new section in here, and I'm gonna say toggles script toggles public boolean bounce. We'll save that, and that should make you okay. All right. I'm going to change this to a private fire random light position. The light position script. The light position script equals the light dot get component fire random light position. I want to take this get component out of here. That's what I'm trying to get out here. We don't want to run this over and over again. Okay. Now in fire random light position, what we want to do is right here, if bounce equals true. And then, let's see. Forget how to do this. Control R, Control K. No, I don't remember what the function is. There's a way to automatically do that. To set that up. But anyway, okay. So now we can turn on and off the bounce, right? And I'm going to set this to default of true. So let's see if that works. Okay, I can see there's bounce. Alright, so far so good, guys. Now, let's go back into torch trigger, and I'm going to make a public function. Public float max bounce distance. Let's go max shadow bounce distance. And then we'll put that here. That way we can adjust it in the editor. So let's grab the prefab of the torch. I'm going to grab just this one right here. We'll set it here. Okay, I'm going to set it something small. Well, let's start off with 800 for right now. Okay. Is it bouncing? It's almost hard to tell, huh, guys? Let's go take a look at this. Yeah, this is bouncing. You know, these might not be bouncing, actually, at this point. They're not. And the reason is because I haven't set default values for the shadows. So actually, I can already tell it's working fine. Okay. So let's see, where's my distance right now? Distance is 6. Let's set this to 10. I can still see the bounce. Okay. I'm going to set this to something ridiculous, like 10. Because I want to see it start and stop. We want to make sure this is working. So there you go. We've got some bounce. We're at a distance of 7. Now we're at a distance of 11. There's no bounce. So let's go. It's working fine. Distance of 9, distance of 12, and the bounce has stopped. It's very good. So let's just take a look, guys. I'm going to run the scene. What did that do for us, if anything? Without that bounce going on? Looks like we're about 30, 35, 40 frames per second. Okay. Again, a little hard to say, but okay. So that's the idea, gang. So I'm gonna reset your max shadow bounce to 800 again. We decided that's what we wanted, and I'm gonna apply that. So now the prefab should be set to 800, and all my torches should be set to 800. So there you go. That was a fairly easy change. Let's talk about the light intensity change. At what point do we want to stop changing the light intensities? Does it not really become necessary? probably right about there. Right? And what is our distance here? I don't know because I don't have a right torch selected. That's very annoying. So let's drop back a little bit. I don't know, it's almost... I'm not even sure I want to mess with the light intensity, turning off the light intensity changes. Because if you look at the wall, okay, we're looking at the far torch right now, okay. If you look at the wall, you can still see the intensity change right up until the light turns itself off. Still, we might want to tweak that out later. Okay, tell you what. Let's turn off the intensity change right about here. And we're at a distance right now of, what, about 1700? So let's say 1700. So it's just the same deal, guys. We'll put in public float max light intensity change distance. Okay, I know these variables are long. Okay. Light bounce. Like, this is really a light flicker. Okay. Intensity change. It's not going to like that because we don't have a light intensity yet. So public bool intensity change. It's true. Okay. If intensity change equals true, I'm gonna have to look up that keystroke. There's a... I used to use it all the time, but for some reason I haven't used it in a long time. Now I've forgotten what it is. There's a couple of... It's like Control K, Control R, or something like that, to reformat your code, so I don't have to do it manually, but whatever. Okay, let's see if that works. Everything should be saved. Let's head back into Unity. So for just this one torch, I'm going to give a light intensity change of 100. Okay, something ridiculous. So right now we've lost the intensity change on everything except for this one torch. Okay, and I can see the intensity is changing right now, and we're sitting at a distance of 29. Right there. So light intensity change, no light intensity change. There you go. Alright. So what did I say? 1700 is what I wanted to set that up. And we'll apply that. Okay, run that. So there you go, guys. I don't know if we've helped our frame rate at all, but it's a start. Let's see here. Which torch do I have selected here? Looks like this one. So what did I say? 1700? Well, yeah, it's going to be too far back to see, which is kind of the point, really, right? 1700 is like here. So right there. It should still be flickering. You can kind of see it if you look at the very back wall. Great, that's great. Thanks for getting right in the way. Right there, it should stop flickering. At this point, the light's nearly off. So, yeah, okay. I'm reasonably happy with that. I'm just going to check my frame rate here, guys. Okay. 30. I didn't expect to get huge gains from turning off the script, guys. Really, you can almost argue it's not necessary, and this if-else statements are probably chewing up any time that we would have saved by not running these things, but yeah, whatever. Doesn't hurt, I don't think. Okay. What else can we mess with? I'm going to do one more before we wrap this up. I've got the script taken care of. What about the sparks or the smoke? Which one should we do? Or the glow? Maybe the sparks would be a good one to start with, because that's probably the least obvious. So you can see the sparks going off, right, guys? At what point do they no longer become relevant? Probably right about there. I can barely see them, right? And we're at a distance of, well, say 600. Okay. So that's pretty good. We've already got a check for 600, so we can fold that right into the same check, right? Oh, actually we don't. Okay, no, never mind. I'm no longer hard coding that. So, public float max spark distance. Okay. So we'll set up another section. Sparks. If square distance is greater than, what did I say? Max spark distance. Okay, so here we want to turn off the sparks. The sparks are here, so we're just going to turn off this entire component, right? This entire, not really, it's not a component, it's a object. Give me my script, for God's sakes. So let's stop it. Let's grab a reference. Public. What do we call that? Sparks. Which is a game object. Okay. Game object. The sparks. Okay, let's save that. We should be able to... Okay, there we go. There's sparks. Unity's being a nuisance. So now we're just going to grab the sparks object and throw them in here. Dink. Nothing to it. Okay. Okay, so if sparks is greater than spark distance, then the sparks dot active was false. Oh, set active, okay. We don't want to use an obsolete function. Thank you. All right. Else. True. Okay. Finally. All right. Head back into here. We'll set a max spark distance of something, again, ridiculous, like 20. Okay. No sparks. No sparks. Sparks. So there you go. It seems to be a little bit wonky, guys, but it's working. So there's sparks, and there's no sparks. Sparks, no sparks. Pretty cool. Okay, now what did I say I wanted to set that at? Let's go back to our torch and set him to a max spark distance of, what did I say? Well, let's set to 2500 for a minute. Let's get it. Let's get a distance on those sparks, guys, where we think that it's no longer really necessary. Probably roughly there. What did I say about? Maybe a little further out. 600. I think that's what I said, right? 600. So let's go to our prefab, set him to 600. And there you go. And we'll make sure this guy's set. Okay, guys. So at this point, there should only be sparks on the closest of the torches, really. So yeah, if I back off, that should actually turn off. I can still see them. So I don't know how far away from that torch I am. Let's make sure we've got them selected. We do. Okay. Let's run that. Okay, let's back off to, what did I say, 600? So we should still have sparks. No sparks. It's a little bit hard to see from way back here, but sparks, I see sparks. Now no sparks. And I think that's true. So yeah, very nice. Okay, so we've turned off one of our particle systems. And our frame rate, well, hard to say. It's saying 81. I don't believe that. That'd be nice. I mean, it could be, I guess. But you can see our batches now are sitting at 1600. Our set pass calls are about 1400. So we've dropped our set pass calls. Our batches are still pretty much the same as they were, roughly. Our set pass calls have dropped by about 100 or so. Boy, it says we're getting 70, 80 frames per second now. That's pretty good. Okay, guys. I'll leave this off here, I think, and we'll pick this back up in the next video. We've taken care of the distance checks on the scripts and on the light script, I should say, and also one of the particle systems. We'll go ahead and continue this with the next one, and we've got 4 more particle systems to take care of. So yeah, we'll get that handled. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks a lot.